lesson, we'll explain how to create a database in PhpMyAdmin. First, we need to define the purpose of our database so it puts things into context. Let's say, for this example, we have a registration form on our hypothetical website that allows users to sign up to receive our weekly newsletter. The form would look something like this. We'd have a first name, a last name, and an email field. Also a submit button. Once the user clicks the submit button, the form data will be processed using PHP and inputted into our database. So the purpose of this exercise is to create the database that will store this information for each registrant. We'll create the form in PHP script later on. Our database will contain one table. The table will follow the same layout as the table in this illustration. The field names are on the left, and the properties of each field are on the right. We start with an ID. Most database tables will have an ID field that contains a unique, auto-incrementing number that helps identify each record. This is known as a primary key. The data type is integer because we only want this field to hold numbers. We've set the length of this number to 3 digits, meaning it cannot exceed 999. If you expected your database to contain many more users, you can increase the length to 10 or even 20. Next, we have the first name, last name, and email. All of these are variable character data types, abbreviated to varchar. This means they can hold letters and numbers. We've set the length to a maximum of 50 characters. Lastly, we have the date field. We'll set up this field so it records the date and time the user registered on the system. This is known as a timestamp, and it's done automatically. To get started, click the Home button. That way we'll make sure we're both on the same screen. Next, click the Database in the top menu. We'll call our sample database My Website. And I generally like to avoid capital letters or spacing. And that's always a good practice when choosing names for databases and tables. For the collation, set it to UTF-8 Unicode CI. This collation is a set of rules for comparing characters in a character set. And UTF is widely used for its speed and accuracy. So we generally like to use that. Now click Create. So you can see a message, database was successfully created, and we can see it on the left-hand side here, My Website. So now click on the database name. And now we'll go ahead and create the table that will contain our data. Call the table Users. And for number of columns, type in 5 and click Go. Now we need to create our fields and define certain properties for each field. We'll start with ID. For the type, select integer, the length 3, and this is the primary key, so set the index to primary. AI stands for auto increment, so make sure there's a check mark in there. Next is first name. This is a varchar and 50 character max. Last name. Also a varchar, also 50 characters, and same for email. And last is date. This is a timestamp. So remember, this is going to record when the user registered for the newsletter. And we don't have to set up the length for a timestamp. For default, select current timestamp. And that's it. Now we can go ahead and press save. And now we can see our table is created.